and welcome to Musical Talk. I'm David Kingsmill. Today we have a very Hell-oween suitable episode about a show full of suspense, death and scientific autopsies, for I am going to be talking about Bloodless, the trial of Burke and Hare. This production has just closed at the Panasonic Theatre on Yonge Street in Toronto. Unfortunately, scheduling did not permit me to get this out while it was still running, so apologies to any Canadian listeners who want to go after hearing this. I'm going to begin this episode with the interview that I conducted with 3 of the company members, because a lot of the show and company details are explained therein. After that, I will talk briefly about my opinions of the show itself. During the course of this episode, you will hear a couple of clips of background music. I was not able to acquire any recordings from the show itself to play, but the director kindly provided me with some of the backing tracks they used to rehearse the show. They have slightly larger orchestrations than the show itself ended up with, but they will give you a flavour of the music. So, without further ado, let's hear from some of the company of Bloodless. So I am sitting here in the band's dressing room of the Panasonic Theatre in Toronto, doing my first podcast of a Toronto musical with the director and 2 of the actors in this musical. Now, the director is a multi-talented gentleman who has directed, amongst other things, Sweeney Todd and Cabaret, to name a couple of known musicals, but he's also an actor and a singer. You have a CD, I believe, called Reflect, which is available, so somebody with many talents. He is a founding artist of Theatre 20, the company putting this show on, and he is
Adam Brazier, and I am the director of Bloodless, the trial of Burke and Hare.
And here we also have another of the founding artists of the company, who, again, is another multi-talented man. He's been on TV in Copper. He was in the original Broadway cast of Mamma Mia, and while he was doing that, he was yanked out of that to be Evan Anderson in The Manchurian Candidate, the recent film of that. And he is
David Keeley. I play Robert Knox. Dr. Robert Knox.
And also Associate Artistic Director of the company as well. Right. So we've got the 2 artistic directors here. And I also have one of the emerging artist ensemble for the company. She's been in such things as Little Women and Spring Awakening. And she is
Laura Jean Ellickson, and I play Abigail Simpson.
Right, so we have, as you will have got from the subtitle, the story of the trial of Burke and Hare. We go back to 1820 Scotland. Now, I don't know how many people know the Burke and Hare story, so between the 3 of you, would you like to give us a rough overview of what the musical's about?
Well, before I came on board with the show, I didn't know anything about it. So doing some historical research, it's about these 2 very nice chaps from Ireland, actually, who were living in Edinburgh at the time. And at the time, the Medical Society was looking for the best cadaver you could find. And so that's why they had resurrectionists or grave diggers. So up until about 1832, you had to do that. So this takes place around 1828. So these guys came upon this scheme to get people drunk and to suffocate them. And then they would sell the body to science, to the medical faculty, of which Dr. Robert Knox was one of the preeminent men in that field. And of course these bodies were untouched. They were pristine cadavers, so to speak. And so they were paid enormous sums of money, £7-8 for a body, which in 1828 was, I can't do the math, but I'm sure it was.
The place says it was upwards of 4 to 6 months rent.
Yeah.
So, that's sizable.
A substantial sum of money.
Yeah,
so what would that be?
It was an incentive,
yeah.
to say the least.
Indeed. Imagine getting £4,000, people. That's probably roughly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever that converts to in dollars, $8,000 or something like that.
So that's the overall story. Obviously, they were found out. Of course, I won't. Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert!
I'm not telling you anymore. That's it.
Fair enough.
And please avoid all historical references. Spoiler alert!
Yes, this is not a docudrama.
Well, so there's a rough idea of what this is about, and this has been turned into a musical by Joseph Aragon, who is a Winnipeg-based writer. He's done, if I think I'm correct in saying, book music and lyrics all by him, and then orchestrated by Jason Justart, who is your musical director.
That's correct, yeah.
Right. And what's interesting about this piece, now Adam, you summed this up very nicely in the programme, which is you make the point that at the beginning of this, Burke and Hare are normal person number 1 and normal person number 2. They're not bad, they're not criminals, they're not killers yet or evil, they're just people who, well, they're tavern owners, inn owners.
They're leading lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
and waiting for something to come along to provide a better life for them, and this happens to come at the right time. And for me, it's the joy in watching them is their descent from where they begin morally at the top of the show, and how they just push that boundary for wealth and for money and for comfort, and by the end of it, they would trade it all back just to get away from the situation they put themselves in.
And the thing that comes along that gives them this is the death of one of the guests who is lodging at the inn, and they take it upon themselves, rather than burying said guest, to take the body to Dr. Knox and sell it, and they get £7, I think, for that first one.
Yeah. £7.10.
All of a sudden they have money. And it's that they just get this idea. Bright ideas just pop into their head, to quote Sweeney Todd, to actually continue this. And they help the next guest along a little bit, and therein starts their trade. Laura Jean, you are one of the guests in this.
I'm one of the lucky lodgers who gets lured into their lair.
Indeed.
And they ply me with liquor. It's actually not the men who do it, it's their wives who find me at the lawn market, bring me into their place, and get me annihilated, drunk. And then I pass out, and that's the end.
The end of you.
That's the end of me.
Back to the ensemble with you, young lady.
Quick costume swap, and there you are again.
It's my more like 5 minutes of fame. There we go, and I'm gone.
The show is really about the evils of alcohol.
It teaches a really good lesson.
Yes, slightly macabre lesson, but it does, you're right. And actually therein lies one of the great things about this show, I think, which is you have, unless I'm much mistaken, a cast of 15.
14.
40.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very small piece for something that actually feels incredibly busy. And I was just discussing, listeners, before we started this conversation, what this theatre is like, because I'm assuming most of you haven't seen the Panasonic Theatre. It's a 700-seater. And I suppose it's not dissimilar to a very, very small Apollo Victoria. It doesn't have the same size, but it's got that same layout of being quite deep auditorium. But it's cosy, isn't it? It's not somewhere that looks to me, having stood on stage, as being somewhere you'd really have to try to fill, if you know what I mean. It doesn't disappear off.
Well, it doesn't have the expanse of a normal proscenium arch theatre. It was actually built as a movie theatre. So, and then it was converted, I don't remember when, 20, 30 years ago maybe, not even that long ago.
Yeah, by Garth Drabinsky.
Is that right?
Yeah, he bought the building and he converted it to the movie house, and then he sold it, and then the Blue Man Group came in?
No, Forever Plaid was
Forever
here.
Plaid was here, yeah.
Anyway, but they didn't change the construct of it, the architecture of it. It's still, so if you imagine yourself sitting in this theater, you kind of go, oh, I can kind of see it as a movie theater now. There's no backstage.
Yeah.
It's literally that black that is there. There's about a 3-foot corridor that we walk along and back there. So it's not a typical theatrical house in that regard. But yes, I agree with you. It is very intimate. It is you don't feel like you have to play to the gods. Although the balcony is quite a ways up.
True.
But yeah, everyone feels relatively close.
Because of the nature of having the smaller players, there are no small players in this by any means, but the smaller players recycled, if you like, as ensemble as well as being their characters. We've got a very busy show because we have a lot of people coming across. We have what feels like a sort of bustling Edinburgh street. In many ways, with 14 people. What's it actually like in this? Because yourself, Laura Jean, you've got, as the ensemble, you've got that bustle, you've got that everydayness about your ensemble role. Putting that into a production like this, where you've got these hugely powerful characters, and yet the ensemble's as important as them in many ways, because actually the one thing I should probably explain before you answer that question is simply that this is set in many ways as if we are seeing witnesses talking at the trial. Because at the very, very beginning, you have the introduction by the judge to the trial. And it is presented that the audience then sits there and sees what the witnesses would be describing. So you've actually got to create that whole. And you double as the character, as the ensemble on the street, and as, to a certain extent, the jury, because there's a Greek chorus element about it as well. So what's it like being in the ensemble for that? Because that's it's a key ensemble in many ways.
Yeah, I I feel bipolar most of the time. I feel like I have like so many different characters to play. In one song, I feel like I'm playing a noble, and then I'll lower myself to the streets, dirt poor, lower class citizens, and I have to, for the most part, there's only like 2 or 3 female voices that are trying to create this big sound with maybe like 5 or 6 male voices. And it's really, it's a test on my vocal chops for sure.
I can believe it.
And I feel I have to be completely concentrated in intense focus on the scene and the characters the whole time, because it's like you said, it's such a fast-moving, bustle kind of show that there's no time to stop and just reflect. If that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, it feels, in terms of production, like a much bigger musical in many ways. It feels like it... I hesitate to compare it to Les Mis, but it feels like something that's got that kind of scale about it. Partly because of the story it's telling, and yet it's sort of, I suppose, in scale terms, it's the Edinburgh version of what Les Mis is to France. It's got that. It's the slightly smaller production to fit the smaller city, I guess. This is a story that's actually got many layers to it as well, because the way it's presented in the musical, the first person who starts to see what's going on is actually David, your student, Thomas,
Right.
who clocks it about 5 songs in, I suppose. There's a moment where he goes, well, hang on, what happened here? Because one of the bodies that comes in is that of a... it's in fact yourself.
Yeah.
It's quite true.
Yeah.
I think he gets... The idea pops into his head, and he kind of wonders, after the 2 Irishmen leave, she's young. There's no evidence of sickness or anything like that. Could these Irishmen...
And the faculty is not used to seeing cadavers in this condition.
Well, they presumably get things that have died, people who've died of the plague or whatever.
Well, they died of the plague,
at that time.
They're already decomposing.
Or died of violent death. They've been buried. They've been, they dug them up 6 or 7 days later. The bodies are decomposing. They're decaying. And this is part of why the faculty was so, and Dr. Knox, he is complicit in it.
Yes.
But he's also so excited to have these cadavers that to be able to dissect. It was an incredible age in Scotland at the time of discovery, certainly in the medical field. And so to have these kind of specimens to work on was unheard of.
Quite a similar style, actually, for anyone who's looking for a stylistic comparison in terms of the period to the C.J. Sansom series of books. There was one of those I read at some point, and they have that same thing, crying for bodies to do experiments on. And of course, they just don't have them. But there you go, science must progress, as Dr. Knox says at various points.
Sure.
Now, one of the things that fascinated me about this musical is the variation in it, because it's not musically specifically. It's got a very wide stylistic influence. There's a wonderful Gilbert and Sullivan homage in the Autopsy song, which is very modern Major General. There's the finale of the first act has quite a Leslie Bracuse, I think, about it. There's a lot of
you're right.
stylistic influences in this, and you do have a couple of points where you have your little traditional Edinburgh sort of folk song as well. What do you guys use as your centre point for working with this? Because, and I speak to all 3 of you for that question actually, because you do have a lot of stylistic influences, and yet there is a very cohesive feel to the piece. It doesn't feel like you're going
for me, is that Joseph has taken influences from very different genres, but he's kept them in the same world. And then Jason Jestat's orchestrations have complemented it that much more. And I would say that we've got some great traditional Broadway belt in like Searching and Seize the Reins, and at the same time we've got the modern Major General, and then we've got the kind of darker silent movie vaudeville, Danny Elfman feel that kind of comes into it as well. But all of it lives in one world, and I think it's a very honest world that belongs to Joseph Aragon. I don't see him going, I'm going to steal that for that and that for that. It all comes out of the story, and it makes sense with the characters. And I don't think he would think about it as much as we would.
No.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's actually, and that explains the cohesion in many ways. Yeah. Because if he's writing from his own perspective, of course, he'll be able to work himself into everything that he writes, and therefore it feels like a whole. And what's it? I mean, it's fantastic music. You guys must be having a whale of a time singing all of this. It's also quite an unusual orchestration, I think, because if you say it's a 4-piece musical theatre band to anyone, their mind will go piano, guitar, bass, drums without thinking twice. Whereas in actual fact, here we have piano, viola, bassoon, and oboe and flute, isn't it? Yeah. I think is the pairing. So it's a very unusual.
And clarinet.
And clarinet. Oh, sorry, yes, triple threat. Quite right. So it's a very unusual musical band, which feeds into the style.
But very, not to get oogly, but it's very earth-based, right? I mean, the piano is acoustic.
Yeah.
It's an upright piano, and all the instruments are acoustic. So
and thank heavens for it, can I just say?
But it's fabulous, right? And it plays into it lends to the time. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not trying to mask anything with any kind of electronic amplification or anything. It's all acoustic based, so it really that assists all of the genres that are at play as well.
Yeah.
I think that when Jason was thinking about the orchestration, or Joseph as well, they were specific about what instruments they chose. Like, for example, instead of just choosing a violin, they chose the viola because it kind of lends that darker sound as well. That really gives that dark sound
Darker,
to the
quality,
to the
a more wood quality. And like the orchestration is what I like about it is that yes, it's a small 4-person ensemble. It sounds way bigger than that, but also it is its own character.
Yes,
like there are musical themes that come into the play that lift you out of your seat. It's like when Burke and Hare come back in and all hell's breaking loose, and then they hear the ba-dum, da-dum, da-dum, and it's just this great kind of almost Henry Mancini-esque feel that and it's such a marvelous theme, and to have that being played on the bassoon is so rich, as opposed to just dum dum on a cello, right? Which would sound nice, or on an upright bass, but.
It's very definitely a unique sound, and I felt that at points there were points where there was almost sound effects coming from the band as well, because it has, as you say, its own character, and that really shows through in the whole of the piece. Now, something else that, talking about harking back to things like your GNS numbers, it feels to me also that you've got the traditional layout, if you like, of having serious duo and comic duo, but of course, the comic duo aren't secondary characters in this; they are just as equal. But with the flip side of the fact that the comic duo are arguably more evil as well, in some ways, because they're not calculating, they're just absolutely having a whale of a time doing what they're doing and taking advantage of it and driving it as far as it can go in a way that perhaps the other two are trying to grab the reins a little and pull them back. You've got this very, very complicated interplay between the 4 main characters as well. What's that been like for yourself as a directing challenge? Because if that interplay's off, then the balance of the musical goes. And it's not, I hasten to add. It's in my view, superbly realised. But
thank you. I think it's, if you were to read the original draft that Joseph sent us, and David would attest, I'm sure, as he's read it, that those relationships didn't exist. They did not like they do now. That was what the original story was much more just the chronological events that happened within Burke and Hare's journey,
right?
And what I've tried to do is in writing that, what ends up happening is you have a great deal of just exposition, which which isn't active to play, and we've tried to remove as much as we could. It's a trial, so exposition is important. We're going to have to feed the audience at some point. With the prosecution, and the character of Ray functions that way really well. But by adding the relationships and building the relationships of the 2 main couples, we make the play about people as opposed to about a plot. We make the play about the relationships and how their lives deteriorate when the plot kicks in. And so we're not following how many people we've killed. We're not watching them kill people. We're watching the fallout of that, and I think it's more human, it's more relatable, and it offers way more fun.
And actually, you're talking about the sort of earlier scripts and so on. What's the process been for this production? Because, I mean, my knowledge of Toronto theatre is obviously only just being built now, but it seems to me like this is sort of a reasonably high-profile production. And one thing I haven't even mentioned yet is the fact that you have, in another founding artist of the company, and somebody who really needs no introduction, certainly to British listeners, is the fact that you have Colm Wilkinson as your creative consultant in this. So you've got big people involved. You've got a fantastic sort of cast and crew. So it's a high-profile show. How long has it been going on? Because you're only getting a month running, aren't you?
This is our first show. This is the first production of theater that Theatre 20's put on, and it's been almost 3 years in the making for us. And we didn't know. We knew we were going to set out to help nurture and foster new works, and with the hope of producing new works. But we didn't know what those works were, and it was about a year ago that we started to make up our mind, and Bloodless kind of rose to the top.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it was originally, I think it was 2009, I believe, it was at the Winnipeg Fringe.
Yeah.
In an early fall.
Yeah, and it was a 90-minute form, that one act, and yeah.
Okay, and what about rehearsal? How long have you guys actually been working on this production?
What is it? I can't remember.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah.
So it's been quite a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
What's the process been like for it? Because obviously, again...
We actually did have a workshop back in April.
Back in May.
In May.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we just did the first act of the show, and that was super fun. It was mostly sitting down at a table and discussing where the holes are and trying to fill those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to eventually show something to the public, or to people who were going to, help support this show. So we put the first act up on its feet and basically did
It was like a sung presentation
Sure.
back in June, I guess. And the first workshop back in May was almost a dramaturgical workshop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we literally just sat around the table and just basically questioned Joseph as about in regards to, well, what is this character doing and why is this character doing it and how does it reflect upon the other people that are around he or she. And then he went away after us an exhaustive two weeks and came back with another draft, basically of Act 2. Act 1 has always been in pretty good stead. There have been some changes, but Act 2 was the one that he really needed to look at. And then you did another workshop with the kids at Sheridan, which is a school here in Toronto, an art school in Toronto that we have partnered with, and they had another kick at it. And then we've been 3 weeks. There have been very minimal rewrites during this rehearsal process, just because of time constraints. And
Sure.
and the piece was in very good shape when we came together three and a half weeks ago. But there have been minor dialogue changes or song changes. I think there was one song added, or a piece of a song added. So it's been really just the thing I keep saying to people is, how does it feel? And I say, well, I don't really know. Because it's a brand new piece.
Sure.
We're not doing West Side Story. We kind of go, well, after the Jets come out, that there's going to be a big applause and then that's going to happen. Because it's already been tried and tested against an audience, which is your other cast member,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And so now that we've had 3 kicks at it here, we kind of have a sense of the growth of it and the movement of the piece and where it lives. And it's last night I felt great. I was proud. I felt really excited about the piece. I thought all the work that we put into it over the last year and a half has been incredibly rewarding and worthwhile. And the response that we've had from colleagues has been fabulous.
Excellent. And we should say, just to get the chronology, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think you've had 3 performances so far. Is that or 4?
3 or 4.
So you've
I can't
done
remember.
4.
4. So you did 3 previews, of which I saw the 3rd. You had your press night last night and your opening tonight.
That's right.
So last night was, in fact, obviously press night. So how was that? Because that's obviously quite a big thing.
How was it for you?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It felt like opening night. We almost had a full house, and the response from the audience was fantastic right off the start. Right after the first number, they were hooting and hollering, and that really gave us a lot of energy to move forward with the piece as well. So.
I had press night nerves.
Yeah.
You always do. It's so funny. I don't think I've ever been happy with a performance I've given. I don't know about you, but on a press night, I always leave going, God, why did I push that so much? why do I feel the need on this one fucking night to do more than I've ever done before?
Yeah.
And that the show ran away with itself a couple times, mostly in larger group numbers with the tempos. We started racing there was a few times where I was like, they're not even going to be able to do the choreography, they're going so fast.
It's a bizarre animal, and I don't think anyone who has not sat in a press night and performed on a press night can really understand it. And you come to a press night and everything changes for one night. And I don't really know why, but it just does. But there you go. I suppose that's sort of part of the nature of the beast, really, isn't it?
Sure. Well, you want to be acknowledged, right? You want to be acknowledged positively, right? So you,
absolutely. In
order to do that, we're like 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds, right? We want to please mom and dad are the press, I guess. You know, if you want to use an analogy, but you try to keep it under wraps, and you try to just go out and. I mean, as I say to people, you know, people say to me, "It's opening night." It's no different than what it's going to be in June because it's people are paying for the show in June as they're paying for opening night. So, you know, you want to try to give the same performance or year two the same performance or to have the same kind of excitement every show, not just the one show.
And what's the plan for this show? Because I actually I came out discussing with my fiancée afterwards, and we were talking about the show and all that, and we very much thought. I mean, for a third preview. Before press night, it was in astoundingly good condition, I thought. And, I mean, this is something that we quite happily have, you know, gone to see on the West End or what have you. So is it going somewhere after this?
I think the success of anything that we do, if our goal as a theatre company is to make a sizable contribution to our culture with this form, the only way that we're going to do that is if the work lives after this production. There is a production going on in Winnipeg next year. White Rabbit has bought the show for them, and the hopes are that more companies will do that. I would like to take this production. My goal and what I'm trying to work towards is seeing if we can't take it to Edinburgh. Pick up our cast, pick up our band, and I'll take over there and go to the Edinburgh. In the fringe.
And that's
there.
closer to the West End.
That's way closer.
I mean, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump to the West End.
That's 400 miles. That's like 10
train it.
I did that this year. Actually, being something of a small Edinburgh vet myself, I think this would be an ideal Edinburgh show.
I agree.
And I think it would run rampant throughout the entire festival. I think it would be very, very successful.
I also think it'd be a lot of fun.
yeah,
Edinburgh's
absolutely.
a great city too.
Yeah, and I mean, if anyone in it hasn't done the Edinburgh Festival, I'd send them over there anyway because it's just such a great environment. But listeners don't want to listen. They've just had 7 weeks of the Edinburgh Festival from our podcast, so I'll shut up about that for now. But yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea if it could. So let's talk a little bit. I'm conscious I don't want to take up too much of your time because you guys have to go and get ready and all that. But just a little bit about the company because this is quite an interesting theatre company to me. It's artist-led for a start, and it's very new, as we just heard. It's the first production of the inaugural season. Tell us about the company and how it came into being.
Well, we're really trying to pioneer something, and so every day it's a new discovery for us of how not only how do we produce, but how do we function as an artist-led company. And you know, we've had our stumbles and we have our successes, and it's a perpetual study, it seems like. But the company began essentially in late 2010. We had a meeting.
Seems like it was longer ago than
that. Oh my gosh, it totally does. Holy crap. Yeah, I wasn't married and I didn't have a kid at the time, so...
I don't have a chronological list thing in front of me, so I can't remember. It seemed, anyway, it's 2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago, and we we got together because we were a group of actors that, were kind of tired of doing, schlock work that didn't really interest us in the musical form. Also not feeling like we were overly well represented in the musical form. And we all kind of wanted to work together. And that's really where it came from. And then, we spent a considerable amount of time defining a mandate. Mm-hmm. Trying to clarify a mandate that would not only serve us as artists and artists to follow us, but serve the community at large and serve the composers. And so we had to go and find out exactly what it is that is needed to help fulfill that mandate. And at the same time create a mandate that didn't affect other companies. Because it is an uphill battle for every company, unless you're Stratford.
Well, and it's uphill for them too.
And it's uphill for them too. It's no matter how big you get, raising the money is never easy. So we really wanted to be something specific that wasn't going to have a negative impact on any other company in the city. We don't want to take funding away from anybody, and so. We took a lot of time to get that part right. That's been primarily my focus.
Sure.
Yeah. is trying to figure out how we can fulfill our mandate in a way that is sustainable and in a way that is that will bring us the most benefits, not only artistically but financially.
Sure.
And the most encouraging thing for me in being part of this company is that, a year and a half ago, we invited whoever wanted to pitch a show to Theatre 20. We would give you a half an hour. We will sit there. There were 4 or 5 of us behind the table, and we gave them a half an hour. Bring your musicians. Do whatever you want in your half hour. We saw 150 from across the country.
Wow.
In 3 days, 4 days. So the thing that blew my mind was there are all these composers and lyricists out there who have nowhere to funnel their art. Stratford does do some stuff. They do commission works. The Mervishes do pick up stuff. There are festivals around the country
Festival,
that it's not like it's nowhere, but there is not a committed company to doing that sort of work and to giving these artists a voice. So to know that these people were out there in their basements, in their attics, and wherever doing this work and not having it heard was a travesty. So to know that we were at least give this one guy, Joseph Aragon, an opportunity is a wonderfully rewarding experience for all of us involved.
Yeah.
It's not just a make-work project for us. It's a make-work project for the composers and the lyricists, and also for the community, and also for Canada at large. Our stories are still untapped. We're still a young country.
Yeah.
And we need to foster that, and we need to nurture that. And so that's the greatest thing from my end of it that we're hoping to continue to do with our first production here at Bloodless.
Sure. And what's it like for you, Laura Jean? Because obviously it's a question I absolutely love asking because it fascinates me what people say.
Yeah.
Is what it's like, because obviously you're taking something that's to all intents and purposes brand new. I mean, yes, it had its Winnipeg run, but I mean, it's not a known story yet. It's not a known musical yet. And so you're really, you get to create. And it's got to be about the most creative thing an actor can really do. So what's that been like for you?
Oh, it's amazing. I'm pretty new to the business. I graduated a couple years ago, and to think that I'm already taking part on a new musical and becoming part of a creative collective is amazing as well. I always thought I'd just be playing the same roles over and over, and the little ingenue, But I get to play so much more in this. It's expanding my talent, my view on musical theater, and I get to work with some amazing actors who have been working in the business for years, directors, and musicians, and to learn from them is incredible. It's an honor.
And Laura Jean is a part of our Emerging Artists Ensemble, which was one part of our mandate was to not only foster and nurture, develop new works, but also new talent and young talent. And so we did extensive auditions, and we ended up choosing 12 younger emerging artists that we saw enormous potential in, and have been trying to build a program to facilitate them, to give them a leg up, to open a door for them, because they're good and people need to see them. And we have three emerging artists in this show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Glenn Mills, Laura Jean, and John O'Logan. Yeah,
excellent. Well, there we have it. I will leave it there so that you guys can do whatever you need to do before the show. But thank you very much indeed for taking the time to come along and talk to me. Thank you for a fantastic show. I hopefully managed to come back and see it again before it closes. I absolutely loved it. And really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There you heard the backing to Uncle Bob, and earlier a little of The Bugger Is Better Off Dead. If you go onto YouTube and look up the username Theatre20Buzz, that's all one word and 20 rather than spelling out the 20, you can see both of these songs recorded from an actual performance with the real orchestrations. So, what was it like? Well, I think the first thing I would say is that I personally loved it so much that I made a point of going back again. I saw the third preview performance, as you heard during the interview, and also went 5 days before the show closed. It was also noticeable in that time that an already excellent show had become more polished and confident, and I felt it a great shame that it only had the month to run. As you heard, it was Theatre 20's inaugural show, and they need to gain traction with the public. Although both houses I was a part of were good, they were not full, and they really deserved to be. The show is very Spartan and is only complicated because of its own ambition. Successful ambition, I might add. The set consisted of 2 tables, 4 benches, a stool, a trunk, and a movable set of steps, together with some curtains at the back and a gantry above, and that was it. However, with that, the company managed to create many different scenes, including, but not limited to, Dr. Knox's lab, the Edinburgh street, where we meet the Hare characters, and of course the dilapidated inn that provides the backdrop to the heinous crimes committed during the show. The steps, in particular, provided an enormous amount of versatility, and their use was a testament to how much can be done with one simple prop or piece of set. Lighting was equally effective. Total blackouts were rare, and you could often see the ensemble moving set on stage, but somehow this lent to the intimacy of the production rather than being a distraction. Subtle effects increased tension no end, such as a dim light left on Hare as he hovered on the edge of the stage, glowering, before he went off to snuff out another young life. The tension was palpable throughout, unless deliberately dispelled by the writing just to slam it back down a moment later. The direction further complemented everything I have just discussed. As you heard in the interview, there were only 14 cast members, and yet the way the ensemble were employed throughout formed a firm foundation for us to follow the trials of the main characters. At no point did it feel jarring to see someone who had died not a minute earlier return to the stage with a slight change of costume and blend in with the ensemble. There was also a very good correlation between direction and music. The Gilbert and Sullivan homage, in which Knox is detailing the contents of the human body while pulling mason jars full of organs from a cadaver, is macabrely counterpointed by the ensemble adopting classic chorus poses and snapping to face front, while they echo Knox in the manner of the modern Major General's song from Pirates of Penzance. Similarly, the moments where choreography became a little more dance-like in the darker songs allowed rhythmic foot stamps to punctuate songs and sudden movements to add a sense of intensity. The all-out dancing in Uncle Bob allowed the already more jovial song to pick up the tone so that you left the first act grinning at the entertainment, but pensive as to what would follow in Act 2. Direction is only half the battle, however, as the acting must be there to put it into practice. And it most certainly was. Burke and Hare, and their respective partners MacDougall and Hare, had obvious and effective journeys. The Hares were the much more complicated of the 4. William Hare's struggle as he sank into darkness with much greater awareness lent a sense of compassion to the character, even as his wife became more disenchanted with him and gradually sided with Burke despite her husband's efforts to win her back. MacDougall and Burke, however, revelled in the new craft, and their manic descent made them fascinating characters as the more comic duo also became the darker duo, relishing in their work with an abandon not shown by the others. This was all highlighted by the portrayal of Dr. Knox, who allowed his fervour for academia to inure and delude him to what was happening, and become all the creepier because of it. The plot involving the Hares and Knox's young apprentice, Thomas, was well realised and not given any less importance than the central focus, and the innocence, conflict and terror shown by the characters in that meant that every moment of the production felt holistically treated and balanced. All of this, as I have said, was supported by the strength of the ensemble. Finally, of course, no musical can be without music, and the songs in this are superlative. Aragon displays his craft with great skill indeed, and I can only echo my comment from the earlier interview that, despite the influences that permeate the work, this is very clearly his own, and is but stronger for the style. The lyrics, too, are superb, and I still find myself humming Uncle Bob or whistling the ballad The Fairest of Ladies, a few seconds of which you will hear shortly, as I go about my days. To me, the signature of a good musical is that you can remember the music, And when I went back to see it again 3 weeks after the first time, I did not say of a single song, "Oh, I had forgotten this one." This show began in Winnipeg in 2009. It was then developed to be put on this year. Now, Adam hopes to take it to Edinburgh, and I seriously hope that he gets that wish. I believe that, in the right venue and with the right audience, this show could take the Fringe by storm. I urge you, dear listener, to keep an ear out for a production of this show popping up anywhere near you. If it does, go and see it, and revel in a new musical that is worthy of every bit of attention it can get. I also think that Theatre 20 is a company to watch. They have a great vision, and, in my off-the-record conversations with Adam before and after the interview, this was only proven more by his drive and commitment to the company, which sounds to be uniform from those involved. Their motto is artist-led, story-driven. And that sounds to me like the best formula for a musical theatre company. Check them out at www.theatre20.com. And that again is 20, not spelt out. Well, that's it from me for this week. Join me again at the beginning of December for my 2 shows about taking shows to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, just in time for those who are beginning to plan their shows for 2013. Until then, farewell for now. This episode presented and edited by David Kingsmill. The Musical Talk theme is copyright David Kingsmill 2012. Copyright for the music from Bloodless remains with the original rights holders.